Let us look at two more algorithms for load balancing, which are geo-based algorithm and weighted round-robin algorithm. Let's get started with geo-based algorithm. In geo-based algorithm, what happens is the load balancer basically allots the request to different servers depending upon the user's location. For example, let's take various servers right here. So we will have servers in different geological locations. Let's say we have three servers in each of these countries that I have mentioned right here. Let's take a load balancer, and then we have a user as well to send the requests. So basically, according to this algorithm, what happens is if a user is supposed, let's say from India, and the user is sending the request from India, then what happens is according to the location, we can see that for this particular user from India, the next geographically closest server would be the Indian server. Therefore, the load balancer assigns the load to the Indian server. Similarly, if the user had been from the UK, then if it had made the request to the load balancer would assign the request to the UK server. So basically, what is happening is wherever the user is from, the load balancer allocates the load to the server which is nearest to the user. In this manner, we reduce the latency by a lot because we have to travel less distance to gather the data or to connect to our servers, right? So this is the basic concept of geo-based algorithm. Here we have different servers in different geological locations, and wherever the user is closer to, according to the location of the user, the request is assigned to that particular nearest server. So here basically we have to maintain two types of data, like where the user is from and where the server is located. So we first of all check where the user is from, and then based on that, we find the nearest server and then send the request to the server. So the load balancer has to store a lot of data, right? It has to know where the requests are coming from and where it needs to send the request or where the servers are located. So it needs to handle a lot of data, which is a demerit as well for this algorithm. And one of the major demerits is that we know that we have proxies as well, right? Let's say the user is based on the user lives in India, and ideally the request should come from India. But if the user uses a proxy service, then basically the user can pretend that he or she is from the UK. Therefore, the request which goes to the load balancer will be now assigned to the UK server. In this manner, the user uses a proxy to not connect to the Indian server but to the UK server. So proxies are also a major demerit of geo-based algorithm. Now let's look into the second algorithm, which is weighted round robin algorithm. So in weighted round robin algorithm, what happens is, let us take multiple servers again. Let's say we have four servers in our network, and these are named as, let's say, server 1, server 2, server 3, and server 4. Now we know that first of all, let us take a load balancer as well to depict the distribution of load. Now we know that in simple round robin algorithm, in case of non-weighted or in case of simple round robin algorithm, if a request has been assigned to server 1, the next request will go to server 2, then server 3, then server 4, and so on. So the request just gets assigned to the next server in the network, right? But the major demerit with this was that if then let's say this server is of 16 GB capacity and let's say this is of 2 GB RAM capacity. So this server has the capacity to handle more load, but still the next request gets assigned to the weaker server. So the simple round robin algorithm does not account for the server capacities and blindly allocates the load, right? So to counter this demerit, we have weighted round robin algorithm where each server is assigned a particular weight, and that information is stored in the load balancer. So according to this, the load balancer knows that okay, now server 1 has a higher capacity and server 2 has a lower capacity. So when a new request comes into the load balancer, then the request is assigned to the highest configured server. So if server 1 has the highest capacity among all, then the new request which comes will be assigned to server 1. Then let's say server 2 has the second highest capacity, then another request which comes into the network will be assigned to server 2. In this manner, based on the weights of the server that we have assigned, the requests are distributed among them. So we have with this algorithm, we have overcome the major drawback of normal round robin, which is it did not take it was not accountable for distributing the load according to the server capacities. But here, since we are considering or assigning weights to the servers, we are taking care of the server capacities and assigning load accordingly to them. So this was about the rest of the two algorithms for load balancing, which is geo based and weighted round robin.